Guys, this is Charlie at Vintage Speed. This is the fourth and the final edition on the assembly of our Stromberg 97 carburetor. We've completed our bowl, we've completed our base assembly, and now we're going to install the top. We've tested our squirters, we've got our float adjustment. We're basically ready to go here. Okay, there's two types of tops you'll encounter. There's the tops with 3 holes like this. Were for the Stromberg 81 and the Stromberg 97. If you don't have this hole, then the top was for a model 40 or 48. And the reason for that is this improved version used this little detent, spring and detent that went in this hole. On the Stromberg 40s and 48s, they used what's called a wave washer that held tension on the choke, and they didn't use this hole. So this is a Stromberg 97 top. And it also fits the 81. All right, the first thing we're going to do is we're going to install our pump assembly and our fulcrum arm. Okay, this is your return spring for your pump fulcrum arm. We make this spring brand new in music wire standard. We make it in heavy duty stainless steel. The wire is actually thicker and it gives you more return on your carburetor, so your linkage snaps back easier. All right, the spring is installed like this, with this end goes in there sideways and turns and goes over that part, that boss, and then your fulcrum arm goes on here, and that part of the spring with a hook on it latches over that, and then you're going to put your fulcrum screw in here. We have these arms and screws brand new if you need them. You want to screw it in just a few threads because this has to come out wide enough that we can insert our pump. Okay, now we're going to set that down and we're going to go to our pump. Okay, our pump, we have 2 styles of pumps available. We have the leather cup and we have one that has a fluoroelastomer synthetic rubber cup available. This is your delayer spring. We have these brand new also. And we make this special little top clip that holds your spring, and we like these better than the originals because they don't hang out on the sides, and that hanging out tends to hang up on your gasket. So we like this style better. We have these available. Uses a little C-clip that goes over there. Once you put the C-clip on, just squeeze it a little bit, and there's your pump with the delayer spring on it. But if you notice how tight this is in against the spring, so it doesn't hang up on your gasket when the pump's installed, that wide one will tend to hang up on your gasket, so we like this style better. All right, once you get that on, then we make this little spring here that holds your tension on your felt, and that felt seals off your pump chamber so you don't get dust or dirt on it. As soon as you put the spring on, you put the steel washer on first, and you put the felt washer on next, and that should be spring loaded like that on your pump. All right, now you're going to take your pump and insert your pump through the hole and up, and you're going to bring your pump up and hook it in your fulcrum arm just like that. At this point, you can go ahead and tighten your fulcrum screw down. If you tighten this down first, you can't get the pump in behind it to get it on, so put it on like this. There's a couple of different styles on these pumps. Some of them used a little hairpin clip here. This particular one uses a cotter key, which most of our new pumps now have the cotter key in them, which I like better. Insert your cotter key in. Bend your cotter key over, and there's your pump assembly installed correctly on your top. Okay, next we're going to go to the choke. The choke uses this detent on the 97 and the 81. You insert the spring in there, and this little detent goes in the end of your spring, and goes in there, and this should be spring loaded. If you have trouble getting this in, before you force it in and it sticks in because it's hardened metal, it's a booger to get out if you get it in there forced in there. Make sure when you start to put it in that it's spring loaded like this. If it's not, take you a drill the size of the hole and run a drill in there and clean the hole out a little bit so that operates just like that. That's the detent for your choke lever and your fast idle cam. All right, now we're going to install our choke, and that should be installed with this pointing up at this angle just like that. And we'll put our choke plate in, our butterfly, and our butterfly goes in with this stop pointing towards the pump. Make sure your holes are lined up, and that should be correct. At this point, we're going to go ahead and install our choke shaft screws. Now, on these screws, as I've mentioned in previous videos, these screws are special screws. They're made on a screw machine, and they have a little ident in the end of it. And the ident was in the original carburetors. They used to put the screw in, and then they take a little punch down there, and they would brad that screw over. Today, we don't use that. We use Loctite, and use red Loctite on all the carburetor screws. And we find that the Loctite works well. I'm not going to put it on because I'm taking this back apart, but once you get the Loctite on the screw threads, go ahead and screw your screw in and snug them down. Loctite on the threads. Okay, that's got our top together. All right. I might add that if any of you guys are worried about Loctite, once that sets up, if you try to take that screw out, you'll break it off. The Loctite holds it that tight. If you need to remove a screw that's been Loctited, take a little propane torch and just stick the torch to the screw for just a second, and that'll soften the Loctite enough that you can take the screw out. If you try to take them out cold, you'll break them off. All right, now we're going to install our top gaskets. We make the top gaskets in two different thicknesses. The standard gasket was a 32nd of an inch. We make a double gasket that's a 16th. The double gasket is made in case you've got a little bit of warpage in your top. It'll compensate for it. It also moves your pump up in your pump well a 16th of an inch, which doesn't really hurt anything. But since this top has been surfaced so that the top is perfectly flat, I can use the standard gasket with it. Okay, now when we were talking about that little clip there, you see that there's not a whole lot of space between the gasket and that clip, and this is why we like this clip, because it doesn't hang up on the gasket. So we use this on all of our carburetors instead of the original flat clips that Stromberg put in them. Okay, our carburetor's tested. We've got everything in there. We've got our top together, and we're ready to install our top. What you want to do is you want to put a little machine oil. Where's my oil can?
Over here. You got your oil.
You're going to, on the leather cup or the synthetic cup, make sure you oil the pump cup to soften it up and get it. It has a garter spring underneath the leather that holds out pressure on the cup. So just coat your pump in oil. And I usually put a few drops down in the accelerator pump well. Okay, and then we're ready to insert this in there. Okay. And before you start putting the screws on, line everything up and make sure your pump's working. The reason that I put a few drops of oil down in the pump well is because the first time you squirt it, it'll blow the oil out and you can see that your pump's getting a good squirt. Okay, now we're ready to put our top screws on. All the screws on a Stromberg carburetor are USS or coarse thread. On the Holley carburetors, they're all National Fine, they're fine thread. So these are 1024 screws. If you guys need screw kits, I have complete screw kits for this with the correct Philister head, and I have them in slotted, and I also have them in zinc Philister head, or you can get them with the stainless. Now we're going to tighten our top screws down, and I mentioned in a previous video about tightening these screws. This is the only one that's hard to get at. If you lift your pump up, you'll find that you can get a screwdriver there and tighten that screw down. Otherwise, it's hard to get to because the pump lays right down almost on the screw. Okay, now the correct way to tighten down your top screws is to run them down just until they touch and compress the washer. As soon as they compress the lock washer, then you want to give them another quarter of a turn. People think you've got to really seal this off, but remember, there's no gas up here on this gasket. The gas is down a ½ inch in the bowl, so you shouldn't have, other than a little bit that splashes on it, you shouldn't have gas on these. So what you do is you tighten that screw down, and let me see if we can get a picture of it here. You see how the lock washer is expanded there? Tighten that washer down until the washer compresses. You'll feel it when it compresses, it'll come to a stop. Once it comes to a stop, give it 1/4 of a turn, and that's tight enough. That's all you need. All right, there's our top installed, our chokes in, our detents in, our pump circuit's working good, and now we're ready to put our fast idle cam on. Okay, there's two different types of carb arms. Fast idle choke levers. There's the type like this that goes on the Stromberg 97, and if you're using the top with this detent, this is the proper lever. It'll have a little hole right here, and it also has this piece that comes out here. If you're on a Stromberg 48, it will use this type of lever, and this type of lever, as you notice, it doesn't have the detent hole because the tension on the choke lever is controlled by that wave washer that's attached here. And also you don't have this protrusion coming out here because you don't need it. So this would be for a Model 40 or 48. This would be for the Stromberg 97 and 81. So what you do is you slip your piece there and you insert your choke screw. And the one you use here is the one that has the narrow flange on it. The one that goes on here has the wide flange on it. I sell both of these screws brand new too if you need them. So once you get it on there, you can snug it down to make sure your choke works. Okay, next, we sell these brand new. This is the choke spring, and it's a special spring that's double wound on the outside of the coil, and it's made to go right here. You install it with the coil facing inward, and there's a notch right there it goes over, and there's also a notch on this one. You'll see the little notch there that the spring clips in, and that's the way the choke works right there. Okay, your choke's all installed. All right, the next thing we're going to do is we're going to put the pump rod on. Okay, and I mentioned this in a previous video too, but I'm going to tell you again. The pump rods are different. Every now and then you'll get an old carburetor, and I see a lot of them. This is all bent down or bent up or bent and crazy things. And the reason that they did that is because they were using the wrong pump rod on it. There's basically two different lengths of pump rods. The Stromberg Model 40 and the 48s use this style arm down here. and it used the short rod, which is 3 5/8 compressed. So if you measure it from here to here, it should be 3 5/8. Okay, in other words, if you've got this style carb arm, you've got a 48, then it uses the short arm, the short rod, which is 3 5/8. If you have this style arm with the summer winter balls on it, it uses the 3 7/8 inch rod, which is your one for the 9781. So make sure that you're installing the right pump rod. I have both those pump rods, the short one and the long one, in stock new. And you see that pump rod went right on without having to bend anything, and that's the correct pump rod. Okay, I might also add that a lot of these you'll find here that you've lost your balls. And what happens is a lot of times these are wore out, and the pump rod don't want to stay on them, or they're bent, or they're loose, or they've fallen out. I make a ball kit for these. It has the short ball and the long ball. You got the long ball to the outside, the short ball to the inside. The way you replace those balls is they're bradded over on the back side. So what you want to do is you want to sand that brad off the back and take a punch and punch the balls out, and you can put our new ball right back in there, and that puts your ball back to the standard size, and you don't destroy your carb arm. You can use your carb arm over and over, and that replaces the balls that come in there. And the balls come with an instruction kit that tells you how to install them. It's real easy, so you won't have a problem. All right, I think that completes everything on this carburetor. If you need any part, I sell every part and piece for the Stromberg carburetors, and we make a lot of parts and pieces that Stromberg never even made. We make adjustable jets for them. We make 6 different fuel inlets, screw kits. All of these parts are available through us. We have everything here brand new, so you can contact us. We're in Florida. It's 772-778-0809, or you can reach us on our website, www.vintagespeed.com. And I'm Charlie. So if you need any parts for these things, let me know. And we have more instructional videos on YouTube that tell you how to install and test this. And later on, we'll be going into a tuning video that'll show you on tuning on them. But as for now, there's your 97. It came in here looking pretty ragged. It looks pretty good right now. Okay, thank you very much.